That's why when I hear coffee,
I don't know. I
actually get
can't
that
handle
way.
a true coffee, so that's my benchmark, anyways.
Nice.
So.
Well, I feel good. We were talking earlier how it was like, what if Neo had taken the blue pill and the red pill at the same time, right? Like,
It would have been crazy.
it would have been crazy.
What would have happened though? Maybe he just would have fucked everything up. He'd still be the one, but no powers because he took the other pill.
Or he would have had an allergic anaphylactic reaction, and he just would have died unless Morpheus had
Just
an EpiPen.
next scene, he's in the
that
hospital.
was just the end of it.
Morpheus is like, "Fuck, it happened again, guys.
Oh, you
Sorry."
fucking idiot. The guy took both of them.
Stop
again.
showing them both pills.
These
He
greedy
needs
fucks.
choice.
Yeah. Explain one and then put that one away and then explain the other. This happens every time. This is our
most
ninth,
guys in
the
a-
one.
Most guys in a cubicle are raving at night.
Right. True. Right.
All right, let me do this. We're on Talkin Mush. This is interview number 2, episode number 3, and we're sitting down with Lars Classington.
Hello. Thank you guys for having me.
The infamous Lars Classington.
I love mushrooms, by the way. All of my experiences except one were awesome, and one of them was a nightmare. So
man.
I'm
Really?
glad to be here. Yeah.
Looking forward to hearing
So
about
let's just jump right in. How many experiences have you had?
I think I've done mushrooms probably 10 to 12-ish times.
Okay.
But the first time was the nightmare. Then I did about 3 or 4 times in a span of maybe a year. And then just recently this summer, maybe the other 4 or 5 times.
Wow.
So I'm on a recent mushroom kick, and I'm a full advocate, more so just for this like enlightening experience of it versus as a party. I don't think of them as a party drug anymore. When I was in university, it was like seeing people, we're all fucked up on mushrooms. But now I think it's like people should be prescribed mushrooms, I think, just like meditation, just like any other sort of mental practice.
Yeah.
How would you describe a psychedelic trip to someone who's never had one before?
Well, obviously it totally depends on how many you do, and it does obviously depend on your mental state going into it. But for me, recently I've only done like maybe 1.5 grams to 2 grams. A friend of mine makes the little chocolates, and that's how I've sort of got back on them.
Okay.
And so I would have the first couple times I just ate one and let them kick in, just to not get it in over my head. And that's what I suggest to everyone. Like either have like a mushroom Sherpa. Like I'm sure you would easily be able to lead people down that mushroom path.
Yes, a guide.
He's a Sherpa. That's what I'm going to call you from now,
Right.
a Sherpa.
And remember the nightmare experience I had was a buddy of mine named Crazy Dave. So he was my first Sherpa, and that's part of the reason that it was fucking insane. And we can get to that story. But
Wow.
In general, I would describe that as if alcohol and some other drugs are more like numbing and more to like escape your shitty reality.
Yeah.
These are, I would say mushrooms is more about like, I've felt really connected to myself, connected to other beings, the world, but also disassociated from myself a little bit. So it's maybe disconnected from your ego and more connected to everything else. Like my experience recently on mushrooms were like at like the next, I try to, it was like I need to feel like that all the time.
Yeah.
But without being necessarily on mushrooms. Like I need to remember my thoughts and how I felt last night when I was on mushrooms, today when I'm in a stressful situation, as far as like thinking what's important in life and like more loving and more connected to other people and more thoughts of like what's really important and sort of stepping away from your life and being like, oh, okay, this is what it's all about, right?
Yeah.
So it's like almost like instead of running away or hiding from your problems, you're facing them head on and dealing with them in more positive ways.
Yeah, I mean, I don't feel like, personally for me, I had like some people on mushrooms that you do too many, it's like whatever demons and anxieties and stresses you have in your life could manifest that way. Like if your head's kind of fucked up, or especially if your self-talk is fucked up, or if you're in a habit of seeing other people of like, oh, what are those guys doing? They're plotting against me, like any like paranoia type things, like maybe not, but maybe take them to smash through all that shit. But for me, it was more just like, I'll eat them more to go to the beach and meditate kind of thing. I'll go on a nice hike. Like they've been hikes recently, hikes to the beach, hikes in a forest. You were mentioning
nature walks are the best on mushrooms.
Yeah, nature. You have to go to nature.
You do like 2 to 5 grams, 2 to 4.
I remember one time we went on a nature walk on mushrooms and we found it was like a little dirt area where it looked like somebody had like choked out a bird or something.
Oh yeah. It was like a seance there.
Yeah. It looked like somebody had done like some kind of seance. It was very weird.
Yeah. I had to take a piss, and I went up to this tree, and I was like, all right, I'm going to take a piss. And I was like, but this tree, it's so beautiful. I can't pee on this tree.
Right?
He came back and said that.
Maybe I'll pee on this other tree. And I'm like, but this tree, what's the difference?
Oh, I had a little conversation with
it's part
it.
of nature,
like, touch the tree. Apologize to some of the shitty things we've done as humans to it. Thank it for everything it's provided.
100%.
And I'm lucky our friend came and picked us up because I held it in until we got home.
I remember. He said that. He walked up to me. He's like, I can't piss on any of these trees.
Right?
I was having a problem.
But really, they need it. Don't they need, like, you should. That's kind of a dick move for you to do, because it's like the recycling of nature. Like, even mushrooms themselves are like fungus in the bottom of
people were just getting rid of toxins, and like I don't know if you noticed, but if you like pee on something, it'll die. Like an animal pisses in your backyard, it's like a yellow spot, not like a greener spot.
maybe all the trees have been wondering like why nobody pisses on them.
They're
like, why do only dogs piss on us now?
Speak
like,
for your own piss, all right? My piss is very nutritional.
But what the trees do want,
take a lot of B vitamins.
The trees do like, and they do have a symbiotic relationship with other mushrooms. Without a strong biodiversity of trees, we won't have a strong biodiversity of mushrooms, and vice versa.
Do mushrooms and trees like sort of talk chemically back to each other, or what is their relationship?
They trade like resources back and forth, basically. Right. So from my understanding, the way forests are grown, like mushrooms are sort of responsible for like all the topsoil that we have today.
Right.
So at the beginning, you'll have like, basically we had mushrooms before we had plants or animals. So we're actually descendants of mushrooms, they say.
Yes, that makes total sense. That makes 100% sense.
And mushrooms sort of broke down whatever matter they broke down to create the first bit of soil. So they create like a lens of soil, right? And then like plants start to grow from that soil, and different types of mushrooms will actually decompose.
Mushrooms grow from mushrooms even too?
Well, no, they'll decompose the trees and other plant matter, and what that will do, they're like little factories for creating soil. So it creates more soil, a bigger lens of soil. Then you get bigger trees, and then a bigger lens of soil, and you sort of rinse and repeat. And over time, you have a forest from that cycle. There's a few reasons for why we're able to even walk through forests. Like without both mushrooms decomposing wood, and also like the odd forest fire.
Right.
We wouldn't be able to walk through a forest because there'd just be trees everywhere.
Right.
And that would be a huge problem.
So mushrooms are like the recyclers of life. Like all of life is like flushed through mushrooms, and then you take that mushroom and it has like all of the wisdom and connectedness of the whole forest, and you ingest it.
Wow, this guy
Think
knows.
about that.
Because it's in him. Once you take it, Isn't that weird?
Right. So again, to my understanding, they're like little pharmaceutical factories. So like, because we're descendants of mushrooms, they actually are able to, they get infected by the same viruses that we do.
I love that term, descendants of mushrooms. So like, what's your background? Irish, Danish. I was born in Canada. I got dual citizen, and I'm a descendant of mushrooms. Of course. I love that.
That's awesome.
I like that.
Sick.
But yeah, mushrooms are like little pharmaceutical factories, and they can actually like cure these viruses. So if some mushrooms are infected by a virus on one side of the forest, mushrooms who already sort of figured that out on the other side of the forest,
right?
Or if they haven't, they'll conspire to. They'll send what they need, the nutrients needed to cure that virus. And if we discover that, we can cure our own viruses as well.
Right.
Wow. Yeah,
fucking mushrooms.
I didn't know. So we've done that
so much.
So we've done that with penicillin.
Somebody should start a podcast about mushrooms and just talk about mushrooms. What do you think?
Man, I think somebody has. I think
so.
Mike here.
Yeah. So there's we basically discovered penicillin. That's a fungus,
right,
from the same kingdom.
Right.
So that's, I think before that we didn't even know mushrooms were any good for us. We thought they were more of like a poison or toxic. And then
well, I mean, you can die from eating a lot of mushrooms, so I'm sure that's part of the stigma towards mushrooms.
Well, there are, poisonous ones out there as well. You have to be very careful with
exactly.
what you grab.
Are you a mushroom connoisseur to the point that you could walk through the forest and know which ones will kill you and which ones won't?
Unfortunately not, but a little bit. I know a little bit.
There's a couple I can point out. Should be a future guest then. Get one of those and take it on the road and walk through the forest, and you got to trust this guy. Like,
take him. And yeah. I'm
like, you take him first.
I'm the videographer, so I'll hold the camera on that one.
Right.
And you roll with that one. That'd be great, actually.
We talked about visuals and senses too. That's one thing. Anytime I'm on mushrooms, it's always like, lighting is so cool to me. I'm like, wow, this fucking room is lit so well. Or you're walking down the street and you're seeing like pockets of lighting, or like old buildings with nice heritage type lighting, and everything seems so cinematic. And I'm an actor and filmmaker, and so I appreciate that shit. So when I'm on mushrooms, it's just like, wow, check out those lights over there.
The composition.
Yeah, which normally I don't do. I'd be like, what the fuck? Like we kind of, I feel like you notice things that you don't notice, things that you block out on a regular basis.
Exactly.
Because of all the hustle and bustle of society and cities and all that stuff. You connect more with that sort of thing. Like light, something as basic as light,
Yeah, exactly. So let's get into Crazy Dave.
Crazy Dave. Okay,
experience.
so
is that's the first?
This is the first time I've ever. So I'm on like if I've done mushrooms 12 times, I'm on like an 11 streak of them being the best things ever, following my very first experience, which is a nightmare. So
this is great.
It happened in Barrie, Ontario. I'm not from Barrie. I'm from Orillia. Dave is a buddy of mine, and I was meeting him at a party. I got there late to the party, and I would say there's 2 or 3 rules about mushrooms, especially mushrooms through your first time. And what would you guys say they are? One of them is like, if you're
with people you trust,
people you know and trust. So I arrived at a house party where I only knew Crazy Dave. I didn't know anyone else, but they were all already on mushrooms except for me. So that was the first thing that I did.
Okay.
Crazy Dave gives me a bunch of mushrooms.
Don't take too many.
Don't take too many is the other one. He gives me like a handful of like big, like if you've seen mushrooms, some of them you see them and you're like, whoa, that's going to be fucking deadly between the cap and the
gnarly ones.
And and they didn't, I've taken them and eaten them where you mix them with certain foods, which we can talk about that after, but these were I was just eating them raw. So I'm like eating them and like gagging as I'm doing it. So it was kind of a horrible experience. The other thing I would say is you should most times like maybe weed is an okay thing, but I was drinking too, because I was just used to when I was partying on a Friday, Saturday night, you just crush a bunch of drinks. So I was doing that at the same time. So I was getting super drunk as we would normally do at a party and giving these mushrooms. And then what happened is I don't think I waited long enough for them to kick in. And Crazy Dave is like, well, you feel anything yet? You feel anything? I'm like, no, I don't feel anything. But maybe I was also just drunk, so I couldn't really tell. Yeah. So he's like, here, take more. So I had more. And then the other thing that we did is I would suggest you always do them in nature is the ideal. You don't have to do them in nature always, but that's an ideal situation at a lake, at a cottage, go to the beach,
secluded and safe,
go through a forest, like somewhere, the same place that you go to like meditate and connect with nature.
That's a good point.
We went to the bar and we go to a bar in Barrie that I'd never been to. It's low ceilings, it's packed, it's sweaty, it's dark. And so I've now, like an hour into this mushroom experience, put myself in all of the wrong situations. Like I did the opposite. If there's a do's and don'ts list of mushrooms, I did none of the do's and I did all of the don'ts. And then
setting is very important.
We're at, and now you said, so now we're at, it was the Queen's Bar. I don't know if it's still in Barrie, but jam-packed on a Saturday night. I'm there with only Dave and I still. I'm not from Barrie, so I don't know anyone there.
Yeah.
I was in university at the time, so I was just back on a weekend hanging out with him. And so the experience there was I'm like super fucked up on mushrooms. The bartender keeps coming to me saying things like, "Are you okay? Are you okay? Are you okay?" Meaning just like, "Are you okay? Do you need another drink?"
Yeah.
But then I'm getting in my head like, "Am I okay?" And I'm like start like looking, and there was a little bit of that like, this is gonna sound shitty. She wasn't like the most attractive bartender. And sometimes when even if people are pretty attractive, if you do too many mushrooms, all of a sudden someone's looking like a gargoyle or a troll or like people you can get some visuals, and which I think is probably just you running shit through your own mental filters, or how you feel about yourself is projected on other people, or who knows. But so I have this like trolly gargoyle coming over to me every 5 minutes saying like, "Are you okay? Are you okay?" And I'm like, I thought I was, but I don't know if I am. And every time like a girl or anyone at the bar would come up next to me, if they'd be like, "Oh, hey, how you like with dance music," they'd be like, "How you doing?" And my default response was like, "Pretty good, but I'm pretty fucked up on mushrooms." So like kind of like I felt I needed to explain why I felt and was probably acting, even though I'm sure from the outside I looked fine. It was just all in my head. But I'm having to over explain to everyone that I'm like, to be honest with you, I'm pretty fucked up on mushrooms. But other than that, so it was like this. It was, the way I describe it, it was like every 3 minute oscillating roller coaster of like, I'm having the best time ever and everything's great and I'm really fun, to this is a horrible nightmare and I don't want to be here at all. At one point, Crazy Dave he's like, "Man, would you just stop telling people you're on mushrooms? It's like, just have fun, relax." And then the craziest thing was, for whatever reason at the bar, there was it seemed like an abnormal percentage of people with injuries. So for example, maybe there was one guy in a wheelchair, maybe there was somebody on crutches, a person with like a sling or something like that, and maybe someone with a Band-Aid or something. So I got down this thought process of like, this is how fucked up I was, where I was like, oh shit, have we all died and we are all the people who have died, but we don't know we're dying, and we're all just partying like we haven't died, but everyone here was like in a car accident, and like I got thinking in this track that we're all fucked up and
now in the land of the dead.
Yeah, to the point where I had to, in order to convince myself that this wasn't happening, I had to you want to ground yourself in something familiar. So I found the TV with Sportsnet, and it was reporting like the Jays beat the Yankees today 6-2. And so I'm in my head, I'm like, okay, I'm on Earth. I'm in this realm. I'm in this dimension. I'm not dead. I'm alive. The Yankees did beat, like the Yankees and the Jays played today. So like had to piece back together reality by grasping for pieces of it around me. It was fucked. And then
stop there. Hold that thought. Just hold on for 1 second.
Did we lose
No, we didn't lose anything.
Are we down?
But I gotta make sure that the storage is okay before. Ooh, look at that. Man, you actually look amazing. That's great.
Stop it.
You don't mean that. Everybody always wants you to keep going.
Right. Well, the first step is to look good with clothes on. So now I look good with clothes on.
That's where I'm at.
And then from, you're like, now I look good with clothes on. Now I got to work to look good with clothes off. Yep. If you care about that.
Get to that warm up stage, you know?
Right.
Hey, can you move your arm?
Yeah.
Like where it's clamps?
Mm-hmm.
Just to your left.
And then
I can see you a lot better.
Stretch it this way.
Yeah, and even maybe move your glass on the other side too. I can refill.
Refill glasses.
Right here.
I guess, Mike, why are you having to move this arm? I'm gonna move that camera around and stuff.
What? I can see.
He did it. He did it for this camera.
Yeah. That's the one I'm gonna move, though.
Tell me what you need.
Sorry, just there's. This is be a lot better. Mike, why are you sitting on a
I can't reach the table otherwise.
I did not think that was going to be the answer.
No?
You're tall enough. Don't let Lars make you feel uncomfortable.
No, I just can't reach the table.
I'm a heightist.
Oh, we do have a screw for this thing. That would have gone on there.
Screw. Bang. That there. Sorry about this.
Oh, it's all good.
It's just I did the interview just yesterday and I forgot to take the footage off.
It'll get you.
Computer.
It'll get you. What's the hard drive on those?
This one's 64 gigs.
I have a Pixel 1, but I got it upgraded a couple years ago. They did it for free, which is weird, but they upgraded it to 132 or 128.
Really?
Yeah, it's great, but now it's only a Pixel 1, so I'm at the point where I need to probably upgrade.
You got the Pixel 1?
Yeah,
I've actually never seen the Pixel 1.
it's an antique now.
This looks way better. I like this.
Yeah, they are. The reason I did is I was an iPhone guy forever, and I got so fucking pissed off I always would run out of storage, and then everything would slow down, and magically that would happen right around the release of their fucking new phone. So I'm like, fuck you. You're just like, you're building this to fuck up. Like, there's really no reason aside from hardware upgrades that anyone should. Like, you should be able to just buy one phone and just.
I agree.
They just up, like, if a company ever came out like that and would be like, you buy one phone, it's $2,000, but for the rest of your life, we just send you the fucking next one.
All right. We're back, and there is a phone like that. There was a bunch of, I think it was a company called Phone Blocks where they had this idea where they wanted to have a phone where you could take out the camera, put another one
Right,
in,
like
upgrade
components.
it. Yeah.
Imagine how many junk phones there are. I heard they just end up in third world countries, and then they have in South America, everyone's rocking Razors, flip phones.
100%.
You know,
Which isn't a bad thing. Then once they have like Wi-Fi figured out, then everyone is part of the global ecosystem.
right?
Sprinkle a little blockchain in there, and
Perfect.
But then they're going to be doing
And
that.
the transition is complete.
They're going to be doing that T9 typing.
And we're all cyborgs.
Oh, gosh. They're going to be stuck at T9. They have
Mushrooms
to press,
might be the
press.
thing that save humans from becoming I think
A robot
eventually
race.
cyborgs and robots will probably have a good chance of taking over, but maybe mushrooms will allow us to like connect with nature, and then we'll
I think there will
figure
be
out the importance of that.
I think there will be a split. There will be a split of people who go heavy into technology, like cut off my legs, do whatever
Right.
you got to do. I think there'll be a sect of people that go to nature and like really integrate with that.
I might cut off all my arms and legs and just like connect. This is like AI.
I'm doing the nature part now, and then I'm cutting my legs off.
Right.
When you're around 70, you do the leg thing. You're like,
Well,
all right, I'm ready.
Yeah, I mean the problem with nature is eventually you die
Become
or whatever.
part of it.
Yeah, you
Yeah,
become
okay.
part of it. Yeah, right. Or I live forever as some weird fucking AI Borg
Anomaly.
Just end up in a scrap pile eventually when somebody
knows?
unplugs me.
Who knows, like, how good that would be? Can you imagine your arm? You just got a little orgasm button. You're just like, tss,
Right?
I don't need you, lady.
I don't need to imagine. I've installed that a long time ago.
Oh, yeah?
You guys don't have orgasm buttons?
Don't press that here.
Right. It's called your prostate gland, actually. We already have one.
You know, there's a...
He just wants it in a more convenient spot.
Yeah, exactly. You know, there's a procedure where you can get your the gland injected, since it's like your G spot for men and women. You can get it injected, get it bigger, and that way it's easier to find.
That doesn't sound good.
Cool. So
I think
where were
that's
you?
I think that's called prostate cancer. Like, you have an enlarged prostate, sir. No. We just injected something in it to give you better orgasms. No, that's cancer, stage 4. You need to deal with that. No, I like it bigger. It's getting bigger. Yeah, we should get back on track. We're talking
Crazy Dave.
mushrooms, and now
Crazy Dave.
we're talking technology. So Crazy Dave. So I'm at the Queens. Reality is like breaking down. I don't know where I am. Like everyone around me is. I'm thinking they're dead. The bartender is a gargoyle that keeps asking me if I'm okay. Like existential crisis, which I think is probably a good thing for everyone to go through that every once in a while. Like,
Yeah.
totally. Like it was a whole, like I was not prepared for that to be like, I had never been in a situation where I had at the end of the night or when I've had my breaking point, I walk over to Dave and I'm like, Dave, we need to leave. I need to go home. I just want to go back to your house and go to bed and wake up tomorrow not on mushrooms. Like my brain had just had enough with it. So we leave the bar. I see a bouncer that I hadn't seen earlier who I knew. So I'm like, oh, Dwayne, thank God I know you're here. Cause then I know that I'm like on earth and I'm alive and all this shit.
Things are real.
It was crazy, except about 50 feet after that, we encounter a cop because I also had to piss. So I go pee and I think I'm peeing behind, just a big tree in a park. What I didn't realize on the other side of the tree was the fucking Remembrance Day memorial in the park. So a cop sees me, and I'm not from Barrie. It's not like I was like, hey, let's go piss on the soldiers. Like, I'm not that fucking much of an idiot. And if we had also been drinking, so I did have to pee. And I'm like looking around. I'm like I'm in a park. I'm behind a tree. We're far away from people. Like, I'm not pissing on stuff or pissing on a statue. Yeah. And then I hear a cop walk up to me like, excuse me, sir, what are you doing? And I'm like, so I'm also still on mushrooms. So I'm in a nightmare scenario having to talk with cops now. He's like, what are you doing? And I'm like, I'm taking a piss. Like, I don't know why you're talking to me about this kind of thing. Like in my head, I didn't say that. Yeah. And he's like, you think you're pissing on the memorial? You're pissing on the, and he's like, my grandfather served, and he's listing off all the people in his family, like I've disrespected him, and I'm still on mushrooms. So I'm like, dude, this is not what's going on. Takes my ID, and it's an Aurelia address because that's where I'm from. But then he asked me where I'm from. He's like, where are you from Barrie? I'm like, no, he's like, where do you live? And I'm like, I live in London. And he was like, your ID says Aurelia, but you say he's like, your ID says Aurelia. You're telling me you live in London, but you're in Barrie. What the fuck's going on there? And I'm like, what are you even talking about? Like, how can I didn't know that was illegal to be from somewhere, living in somewhere else. And I'm like, I'm visiting a friend and we're out partying, and I didn't tell him we had a bunch of mushrooms, obviously. But in my head, I'm thinking like, and I'm like, I just want to go home and go to bed, please. So finally, after like kind of humiliating me and giving me a power trip about how much of a shitty person I was for pissing on veterans, which I for sure was not doing had I known that I was in the park. But I wasn't even that close. It wasn't like the monument was here, there was a bush here, and I was on the other side like looking a soldier in the eye while I was pissing on a statue. I was pissing on a tree and like yards and yards and yards away. It just happened to be the park in the middle of the town that had that thing. Exactly. So to him, he was hassling me for that. So then I went home and went to sleep and woke up the next day. So that was the end of the nightmare.
He just harassed you a little, and then
he basically harassed me a little and was like, get out of here. Don't. Oh, the one thing he said to me was like, what do you think would happen if everyone just went around pissing? And he's like, what do you think, like tomorrow, what you want tomorrow, this whole town's gonna smell like piss? And I'm like, dude, it was also slightly raining. I'm like, I just peed under a tree. Like, it wasn't like a fucking
what about dogs?
Swimming pool's worth of piss. Like, it was one man's piss in a park under a big Christmas tree while it was about to rain. I'm pretty sure it's just going to wash away and be gone tomorrow. And I'm like, I'm not advocating that I'd just be running down the streets pissing all the time. It's like, I had to piss, like, to the point where, like, desperately, there's no cabs. Like, it was right at the end of the bar, so no cabs, no nothing. I gotta pee. I'm on mushrooms. Yeah. Like, what am I gonna do? I'm just gonna escape into this park and pee, and then all of a sudden, this blows up in my face. But he let me go, and I woke up the next day after my existential crisis.
How did you feel when you woke up the next day?
Well, it was all the worst, so I didn't feel good.
No?
Like I was also hungover too. That's why I say don't mix such a great drug, like, and I wouldn't even call it a drug. Don't mix such a great experience as mushrooms with such a shitty drug like alcohol. Like alcohol, you're just straight up poisoning your brain and poisoning all of your senses. There's not really any benefit, other than maybe you lose your inhibitions for a little bit when you're on alcohol, but at a certain point with alcohol, everything is just super fucked, and that with the right dosage of, I mean, I guess it's like that with every drug. You have enough of it and it's okay, but
yeah, exactly.
Maybe not every drug. I wouldn't advocate heroin or
no, you don't want to push heroin.
No.
No.
But I didn't feel good. I felt shitty, but I think it was because I was hungover, like, and I was in a awful situation, like mentally, like I felt relieved.
Was it easy to like go to sleep, or did we
no
it
was the worst. That's the other thing about mushrooms. If you eat too, like the long, like it's a long, it can be a like what 6 to 8 hour thing.
Yeah, definitely.
I kind of re-upped about an hour into it too, so I don't even know how many I ended up doing. I feel like I did at least like 4 grams.
I would say maybe. It sounds like if it was like 2 handfuls, that could come out to around 4
and
5.
So that, then I go home and I'm trying to just close my eyes, but your mind is racing a mile a minute. Like your thoughts are kind of fucked. I was still drunk, so I kind of had the spins as well. Like
that's so funny.
Rattled from a encounter with the cops. Like, I think like it was probably like 5 o'clock in the morning by the time I finally like started to slow down and get some sleep.
So can I ask, after that experience, what made you want to do them again?
I think I was just like at a comedian buddies and somebody had them and offered them and I'm like, yeah, I'm down. Yeah. But it was in a...
Was it years later?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It was also years later. It was probably close to 10 years later.
Wow.
Maybe not 10. Maybe like 8 years later.
Yeah.
We did them at my house.
Good setting.
A measured dose, like couple.
That's good.
Like it was probably, maybe we did 2 grams, 2 to 3, but it wasn't like... I don't advocate them as like, let's all get fucked up on mushrooms. Like that can get a bit crazy. Yeah. Or if you do that, again, very controlled environment, nature, like maybe have some chaperones who aren't on mushrooms as the voice of reason. And then the last, like I said, the last 4 or 5 times, very small, like 1.5 grams to 2.5 grams, but like go to the park, go for a hike. But every time amazing, like tons of laughs, like super giggly with comedians. We were like, we get into like little act out modes and sketch modes and we'd start like, all of a sudden we're playing stupid games and we're dressing up as weirdos and putting like wigs on and shit and doing like videoing ourselves doing fucked up shit, like, but all like in the name of fun.
What's the craziest like thing that's happened to you while you were on mushrooms?
One morning in London, I don't know, this isn't that crazy, but it was memorable. We went out at like 5 o'clock in the morning on the streets and we were singing like the streets were Broadway to us, but they were dead, and singing and up to the apartment building, singing like, wake up everybody, like you guys gotta go to work in the morning.
Like a Disney movie?
Maybe it was like 7 o'clock. I feel like, well, it couldn't have been 7 because there weren't people, but it was around the crack of dawn.
It makes me think of Beauty and the Beast, like the opening scene where she's like singing through the town.
The world was our the world was our oyster, and we were like swinging on lamp posts and like kicking my heels together, and we walked down to the park, down to the river, the Thames River, and I forget the name of the park, but right downtown London, if you've ever been.
I have actually.
Yeah. That night, we did them with some friends and talking about, I'm always interested in how people eat them, like to make them not taste super shitty. Yeah. That night we had it was basically a blender girl drink, like margarita party. Right. And we were out on the patio drinking mixed drinks. And then I just threw in a couple grams of mushrooms for each of us, and we drank like strawberry margaritas.
That's
and then
perfect.
An hour later, they kicked in. Yeah, I think one of us puked. I think one of the girls puked.
I can see that.
I mean, sometimes no matter how you mask them, you still taste that underlying aftertaste.
The best thing, I don't know about you, but the best thing for me is tea. Making them into a tea.
Right. Yeah, that would taste good.
It extracts it all, and it just, you can put some honey in it.
The manly version of a margarita.
Yeah.
We've
tea.
We did the margaritas one time. The other thing that we used to do is we'd get McFlurries. Then take the McFlurry home and then like throw the whole thing with the mushrooms into like a magic bullet. So I'd get like a Reese's Buttercups McFlurry, and we barely taste them.
A psilocybin McFlurry. Wow,
yeah,
they should sell those.
Pretty good. They should.
That's something that you would do, definitely.
McMushrooms. I'll have a large McMushroom McFlurry.
This guy would put them in oatmeal. Instant
great.
Oatmeal. Just mix them around.
Yeah. You eat them with chocolate. Yeah, I could see that. Mix them around with oatmeal.
Oatmeal was actually bomb because I tried it because he was doing it, and I was like, wow, I couldn't even taste it. Like I made a tea, extracted it all, like squeezed it all out. That's and amazing. Then threw those.
Yeah, with the remainder, you can make an oatmeal.
Yeah. Pizza's pretty classic.
Pizza's good. I've done that. Peanut butter and jelly.
Put them under the pizza or fold up pizza on them. Peanut butter and jelly is amazing. Yeah. Peanut butter is pretty classic.
I've had my craziest trip on peanut butter and jelly.
Yeah,
mushroom sandwiches.
Why was that? Did you do more mushrooms?
It's hard to say my craziest because so you're in like the 2-3 gram range.
Right. Yeah. So let's talk about that. I want to hear your stories because I'm interested in. I mean, I'm not so. I like the enjoyable time of like just you go on a small spiritual journey to the beach or to the park, but I am interested in seeing like the edge.
Wait, one second. Like, because I know you were asking about this before, so you're about to go into it. And I know you were asking, you wanted people that have had it. Have you had the mystical experience? Do you know about the mystical experience?
I mean, I don't know.
No?
I don't. I mean, you need to tell me. I mean,
so,
I felt mystical
this is,
and magical.
This will be the introduction to the mystical experience.
So I usually describe mushrooms as 3 different drugs. There's the microdose.
Right.
It's good for work, good for working out, good for getting into conversations, whatever you're doing. It's less than taking a coffee. Then there's the medium dose, what you were describing. Take
a couple grams.
Take 2-3 grams.
Light visuals.
Go for a nature walk.
Yeah.
Enjoy the vividness. Enjoy the nature. Enjoy the company of your friends. Like you're not kind of out of your mind, so to speak.
Right.
And then there's the hero dose, where you go on the journey within. And I wouldn't recommend going on a nature walk for this version.
No. Mm-hmm. No, you might end up in a culvert somewhere, or like burrowed into a tree,
naked, curled up into the fetus position.
That's possible.
But the cops will be nice to you in that situation.
So explain the hero dose. And so what is the
So
scenario?
I'd say a hero dose is like 5+ grams. Mm-hmm. Typically, I usually go into the 7-8 gram range, 9-10.
How often in your life have you had that level?
I'd say at least half a dozen times.
Okay.
Half a dozen at that
at
amount?
Least at that amount, yeah.
Right.
15 times.
Well, you
at least.
Is that what you're saying? You've done it 15 times, or you're saying
together we've
I know
done
you've done them more than me.
But there was like
you're more of a hero than you know.
But I've been doing them. I've been doing them since I was 14 years old.
Amazing.
So typically once a year since then. So yeah, you're probably right.
Yeah.
Closer to like 15
I feel like
times.
that little period where you were at that, like we at least like
yeah. That year was like every month for like half the year.
Yeah.
And setting wise,
I guess that was half a dozen alone. Okay.
In what context?
Cool. So I have lots of stories. So the one I was going to refer to, my peanut butter and jelly one, that was probably one of my that was probably like my 3rd trip or 4th trip ever. And the reason it was so intense is because I did it on an empty stomach, which I don't want to recommend, but it depends what your goals are.
Right.
So I was on an empty stomach.
You don't want to waste your mushrums. Eat them on an empty stomach.
That's right. Yeah. Total empty stomach all day. Basically fasted. Went to work, so I worked all day. I wasn't just chilling. It was basically like an exhausting day. So I had made this plan to do some mushrooms with my friend, and I follow through with those plans. So I went to his house, and I can never eat the mushrooms straight up. My friends, both of them, they're just gross. Like eating. Yeah. We decide we're doing a quarter each, so this is a 7 gram.
It's like dirty sour socks.
To eat a quarter too. Oh my god.
Yeah.
So 7 grams.
A quarter, 7 grams, all at once. Fuck. And I was like, boys, I'm not eating this. Like, what can I do? And my buddy's like, I got peanut butter and jelly. I'm like, all right, well. Let's do it. So
how in one sandwich?
I put it all in one sandwich. It was gross. It took me so long to get through the sandwich.
So gross.
So I'm eating the sandwich, and they're eating their mushrooms out of the bag, and I'm like not even finished my sandwich. I'm halfway through this sandwich, and the door starts talking to me.
Wow.
It's like, and I'm kind of just like, so their perception is like, I'm just going, I'm just turning to the door and saying, shut up. And they're like, shut up, what? I'm like, the door is being annoying, you know?
You ain't going anywhere.
Let's take it outside.
Yeah, I don't remember what it was saying, but it was definitely like getting on my nerves. So I'm like, so I was tripping out already. My friends are jealous at this point. They're like, why are you tripping?
Right.
And why are we sober still?
You were on
empty stomach, running on empty. Yeah. Right. So we're like 15 minutes in, and I'm just like feeling it. So and we had plans. We were going to it's this camp. It's like it's half adult camp, half gymnasts are training to be coaches. So my buddy, he's training to be a coach, and I'm going for like the adult camp side of it.
Like gymnasts, like flipping around on pommel horses
pommel horses, trampolines, all this fun stuff.
So like you're going to like so the next day. This
is the next morning. Yeah. This is what we're doing, and the night before we're going deep on mushrooms, right? Gotcha. So and our plan is pack up all the beers. My buddy had already done it. He rolled up each beer into like a shirt. We're like 17, 18. There's a bar on the island, but we aren't allowed in it because we're still too young.
What island?
I don't know the name of the island. I'd have to do
Toronto
extra research.
Island or something?
Probably not.
Sure.
So this is for like 10 days. This thing that we're leaving for. So we had basically bought a 2-4. We bought 3 2-4s and we split it. We had 36 beers each. Okay. And he already packed his up all nice and neat, and each shirt had rolled up beer in it, all packed away in his bag. And I'm like, I'll do mine after I take the mushrooms. They take a while to kick in anyway. Right. So I'm already tripping, haven't touched my beer yet, and it's just sitting all out next to my bag. And I'm like, okay. So the night begins. An hour goes by. I'm well into my trip, and my friends haven't started tripping yet. Okay. They're like, "Fuck you." Right? I remember. So I remember. I don't remember everything from this night, but I'll give you. I'll give you a few tidbits.
Yeah, give me the highlights.
So so at one point, I'm in the washroom looking at myself in the mirror, and I can't recognize myself at all.
Right.
And
been there.
And you have the thought of like, I could die. Like, I don't, like, reality is up is down, left is right. I don't know what reality is. Like, I could die tonight, but then you're like, I'm okay with that. Right. You feel fine with it. So you're like, cool. And then I remember lying on the couch and putting my hands on my face. And I remember my fingers, feeling the feeling of my fingers and my hands melting through my skin, through my skull, like this weird feeling. I'm like, oh my God.
I've never heard this in such detail.
And I look, and I decide to look at the wall, and he has like green, like jungle, like wallpaper. Right. So I start seeing like gnomes pop up, and they're like doing work in his wall, and it's like this whole view, like vivid view of this world.
Machine elves.
Yeah, you're in like another dimension.
And yeah, it was a very trippy night. It actually took a super south turn. So at this point I'm like, okay, I gotta pack my beers. So what do? I take all the beers, I throw them in my bag, and I don't do anything neat. They're just in the bag.
Just 36 beers.
Bottles of beer.
And
bottles?
If you lift up the bag, it's like clang, clang, clang.
Right.
And so I'll tell you more on that later. So that's what I do to solve that problem.
South, though? What happened?
So what happened when it went south was we're getting close to the morning. And my friend decides to have some chicken wings. So he goes to his kitchen. He's eating some chicken wings, and he and this has nothing to do with the mushrooms, arguably. But he decides to, like, we're so tired, we're like up all night, and he decides to fall asleep, like kind of on his counter. He's like leaning on his counter, and he gets comfy, and he just sort of like passes out, and then he falls backwards and hits his head on the ground.
Oh shit!
And
I thought you were gonna say he left the mushrooms the wings in the oven, and the oven
lit
on
he
fire.
He already ate the chicken wings. Okay. Done, right? So he just finished his chicken wings, and he just decides to like do little napskis, like while standing near his counter. Ooh. And he just falls back, hits his head, and basically from that moment he was fine afterwards. Like after like 10 seconds, he got up again. And I told him what happened. Like, hey man, you better maybe like call an ambulance. And he's like, don't be a pussy. His response, don't be a pussy. I'm like, okay. So our third friend, his brother has problems with like seizures, so he goes into like a whole existential like mode where he's freaking out about life and death.
Right.
He's crying.
Yeah.
He's
should we
about
call
his
the
brother,
ambulance?
And we got to do something. And our other friend is like, you guys are being idiots. Like, I'm going to bed. See you later.
Right.
So, and we're both kind of like not feeling like, the whole night went south. We were kind of having a good time, and then the whole vibe just changed. Right. So basically like from there, like night ended. We basically went to bed. This is his house. His family's upstairs. Yeah. If it was my house, maybe I would have made a different decision. But this is like his house, his family. He's telling us like, dude, I'm fine. I'm up.
Right.
And telling us to sort of shut the fuck up. So
we're going to bed after.
And we're young. We're kids. Yeah. And going to bed after. We're like, hey, maybe. Yeah. We're trying to say. He's like, cool, you guys are on your own. Right. And he did turn out fine. So he's all good. But
did he though?
He's doing fine. He's
on mushrooms.
Maybe that's what made him so smart.
Yeah, he's really smart actually. Yeah, he's doing some wonderful things.
So the next day you guys woke up and everything was fine.
And we went to camp. He did his gymnast thing. He's a gymnast or was a gymnast, and everything was fine the next day. So I had the beer in the bags, and I went up to the bus driver at the Greyhound, and I'm like, and he's like, yeah, I'm taking bags to put them underneath. Clink. He just looks at me, looks at the bag, puts the bag in. And we went we had to transfer to a new bus with a new driver. Same thing, like clink, looks at me, looks at the bag, puts it in. No problem. Right. We get to the camp, and like we were able to somehow get just him and I and one hilarious dude to be in one cabin. Nice. Because I guess there was enough people that signed up, whatever it was, and we just like filled that cabin up with empty beers. That was a drunk week. Yeah. But see, notice how I didn't mix the mushrooms in the beer. I did the mushrooms and then I did the beer afterwards.
Classic. And what about the mystical part though?
Well, see, that time.
That was more like party time.
It was more party. Yeah. It wasn't. We had a good setting, but we didn't have our sets. We didn't set our intention.
I thought you were telling the story about when you turned into liquid.
Part of that was like my hands went through me. That was just again like one part. Like I don't have. It's so fragmented the evening of like what happened. It was 6 hours of. Okay, so let's go into mystical. What I'm talking about.
By the way, your friend, if he had followed the rule of like doing them in nature, when he fell, he just would have hit his head on like grass or like on a beach, and he would have been fine. And you guys could have partied all night.
Yeah, he didn't have to fall asleep standing up. We were already sobering up at this point. Like we weren't like this is like hours after we took.
I was gonna say if you need to lay down,
it's just a bad move. It's just a bad move. Don't sleep standing up.
Yeah,
don't sleep standing up.
If you're on something like that and you need to lay down, just lay down.
But that's the thing that kind of swung the vibe of the night, right? But so I would say I didn't. So let's go mystical experience. So let's just like preface this with a study. So they and we talked about this I think on our last episode with the one where people who can't quit smoking.
Right. I've heard about that.
There's a study where and it basically had 80% effectiveness up to a year later. I think it might have gone down to 60%, but that's like almost double what the leading
drugs are.
No, not drugs. Like whatever they have to cure smoking, the leading drug they have to cure smoking. Oh, okay.
Yeah, like patches or whatever else.
Champax.
Yeah, so that's I think the leading one is like 35% effectiveness. So they blew through that. It's up to 60% at least. A year later, these people physiologically haven't had a cigarette. They tested them, right? So the people, they say the people who actually quit are the people who had a mystical experience. They had a hero dose and they went and they had a shift in perspective. So how do you do that? How does that happen? Let's talk about that. So there's a time I did mushrooms with I think Colin, and we did whatever we did, 8 grams, let's say. And
you did 8 grams as well.
We usually do like you'll find like because like you just take like a half ounce and like
part of me wants to do that and then part of me is afraid.
No, you'll be fine.
But they say that all of your dreams are on the other side of fear. So now I'm like the fact that I'm afraid of it means I need to do it.
You'll have such a great experience.
I like to say that people who have a bad experience are the ones that don't surrender.
Right. That makes sense.
You like them so much that you seem like you'll give in.
You can get through. You can get through a challenging experience. That's not considered a bad trip. That's a trip where you grow. Right. It's just not all rainbows and lollipops either.
A big part of it is if you're ever having a bad mushroom trip is just remember you're on fucking mushrooms. Like you're like, oh yeah, I'm on mushrooms right now. And that kind of all makes sense. You're right. Like, and that is just surrendering.
That's something you can do. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I'm not sure if Colin was there at this stage. I don't remember whether he had gone home at this point or if he was still around. but
when we do them together, we're like together, but like not.
Oh yeah,
which
like
is good. You don't want to have
your own.
You don't want to be stepping on
journeys.
each other's toes,
Right?
At all,
Right.
So I remember stepping out to like I had like a backyard with a sliding door, and it was a big backyard. And I remember looking out on the backyard, and all the grass and the trees just disappeared. It was just like stars and space.
Nice.
Okay.
Nice.
So I'm like on the edge of the universe.
A rip in the galaxy.
Okay.
Right there.
And I had what's called an ego death.
Nice.
So what is your ego? What do you think? What is your ego to you?
I mean, it's all the shitty parts of humans. Basically, it's all like your fear and insecurities and your survival instinct and all that kind of stuff. Like, I don't know exactly. Like I guess it's also your recognition of you, like the self being separate from others. That's part of it. Like, I guess that's your ego, is the I.
Right. So it's not all bad, right? Like
right.
Your ego is
like
bad. You could have a healthy ego, or you could have a toxic ego, right?
Right.
Your ego is, to my understanding, all your attachments to the world.
Right.
So your likes, your dislikes, your family, just anything that makes up Lars.
Right. your ambition
is your ego. So
basically.
So when you have an ego,
that's definitely part of it.
all of that goes under the umbrella. So when you have an ego death, that all gets stripped away. It dissolves. Everything you know, everything you love, everything you don't love, everything, your career, all that you are is just stripped away. Just kind of like I think of it as like a liquid, just like depleting from my body. And so I experienced this ego death where I'm like, oh my God, like who am I? You get this overwhelming feeling of oneness with nature and the universe. And it's just like power coming from the universe.
I feel that on smaller doses, but maybe not full death.
Right.
I've had ego injuries before, but not full death.
Right. So I like to say I do mushrooms once a year. Like, it's not always a hero dose, but it's to keep the ego in check.
Right.
I used to say just keeping myself in check, but I think it's keeping the ego, because it ebbs and flows. It gets bigger, and then you can bring it back. Right.
I think that would be as important as going to have a fucking physical once a year.
Yep. Right.
Like, it should be almost prescribed.
Yeah.
That's how I've been treating it for
Mushroom
myself.
centers where you just go and you sit back and it's just
100%.
like Netflix, and you watch documentaries or whatever.
on whatever it is that you have a problem with. Like, if you have to work on something, you
Right.
only watch these videos. You have to do something, you only watch those.
Movies are amazing. Some
You
movies
watch
are just
Clockwork
incredible.
Orange on a hero.
I did that. Don't
Did
do it.
that.
Clockwork Orange on
don't
mushrooms.
You just gave him a flashback.
Yeah.
Oh my god, that's on the don't list right there.
Yeah. I've told this story before, but I ended up naked in my washroom. And
Wow,
in the
that makes
fetal
100%
position.
sense.
Yeah. I was very scared someone was gonna find me, and I couldn't stop getting high. It was crazy.
You could have just pressed stop. How far through Clockwork Orange?
No. I did press stop.
You did.
Oh,
But I got to a point where I've seen too much.
I need to see
And I
too
was
much.
just
I
like,
just need to go strip naked and lie in my bathtub.
Yeah, at first I was just like, let me just take off my shirt, and then I thought I had to shit, so I pulled out my pants, and then I was like, the pants are around my ankles and it's confining, so I stood up, and all of a sudden I'm like, oh man.
Was the intention ever to have a bath, or you just
No. I
crawled in
just
a
went to the
dry
washroom
bathtub?
just to take a shit, piss.
Right.
That was it. I just ended up naked. I stayed in there for like 2 hours. Good 2 hours. And then I called him and I was like, I love you, man. Love you. He's like, I'm in the grocery store.
Right.
Just rushing through a grocery store. I'm like, hey, what do you need?
And you were done, or this was different? There was different occasions.
That's the different occasion.
That's separate.
So I remember just having this feeling of you could be anybody tomorrow.
Right.
Like, I can have any personality
totally
I want,
true.
which scared the shit out of me. So I
Right.
took a step back, and I kind of like dialed it back, and I
Right.
kind of went back into like me, I guess, but
Right.
maybe slightly with a different perspective. So you have this appreciation for life and appreciation for death, and it's something that you're not afraid of anymore.
Right.
And that shift in perspective is almost just like, it's hard to articulate at that point. It's like, what is
you've
happening?
articulated it pretty well.
What is happening there?
I agree with that, and I think everyone would be better off if we could be more like that. The problem is we've constructed all of fucking society around us, so the way we're all used to interacting and our life is ego like driven, really. So then you have that ego death, but then the next day you fucking got to go to work and got to go to the bank and got to pay a bill and
you got to get ahead and
so it's kind of all fucked. Like I don't know what
some dudes just pack up and they move to the jungle in Costa Rica.
It's actually not a bad idea,
you know. And then you're one with nature and you have animals all around you and maybe the Wi-Fi spotted.
I was just gonna say, as long as they have Wi-Fi, we can all move to Costa Rica right now.
I'm down. And we'll just do sketches.
Live as heroes.
That's how we'll make money.
Live as heroes.
Microdosing and macrodosing mushrooms.
So yeah, that was a couple of my larger experiences. You don't always get the mystical experience when you do a large dose. So they actually call that in science like the dud effect, I think, where it's like, not all of our participants like got the mystical experience, even though we gave them 5 grams.
Right.
Or whatever it was. So
maybe that means they have a very, very strong ego or an inflated ego.
It could be
could be hard to smash through it if you're like fighting the whole time.
Not even that. Like it could just be that the toxicity varies from cap to mushroom to like what exact. It's so hard to control like the dosage to a T because it like sort of varies within the mushrooms.
There's that, and I also think like as you're saying that, I started thinking as I got healthier, because there was a long time where I didn't hallucinate at all. I would feel it. And he would like be seeing things. I'd be like, fuck, I don't see anything. And then as I got healthier and we were at like a different place, I remember because it happened. I asked him, I'm like, where did you get that screensaver? Because it was moving and I'd never seen anything move. Mm-hmm. And he could see it too. He's just like, yeah. I'm like, but where did you get it? He's like, it's just that's just how it is. I'm like, and I was sitting there for like 20 minutes. I'm like, is that a computer? He's like, no, it's just a picture. It's just. I'm like, it's moving though.
And you were looking at just a static picture that was moving?
It was just like the universe. It was like a picture like the Andromeda or something like that. And I was like, oh my God, I'm seeing things finally. And then all of a sudden I started hallucinating a lot. And since my last trip, when I was actually at my healthiest, I was hallucinating like crazy. It was nuts. Absolutely nuts.
That's one of my favorite things about mushrooms. I can't say I've like well, yeah, I guess it is hallucinating sort of, but I was gonna say like I haven't seen so much things that aren't there, but looking at art or trees and things like seeing things especially pulsating or kind of vibrating, maybe a little more 3D, like the contrast. I love that. And that's also to me usually the litmus test of am I still on mushrooms? Like you'll kind of feel like, okay, it's 4 or 5 hours later and you're like, I think I'm kind of done mushrooms. And then you'll look at a picture on the wall and it's like, wow.
But that's
like, ooh, I'm still on mushrooms.
That's not always a test because even I asked him and even he had it because after you do a lot, I can look at this now and it could start moving.
Yeah. That's good.
So it's like it's
not as much as
floors.
but not as much as directly after.
Like there's
you would do it
the months after, like we did. Like,
but I can like look at this and it'll start moving. Like if I just concentrate on it.
Nice.
So
is that just called imagination? What is that called?
Yeah, right.
That is
like it makes you wonder.
That is one of the good things, like, or I don't know, one of the challenges I guess with mushrooms is then to carry that thought process and those discoveries that you have while you're on mushrooms into your regular day to day when you're getting all like in a huff about fucking society or whatever.
Right, you come to your realizations while you're on your trip, but then you have to like put in the work afterwards.
You have to keep some of them, and be like, I felt that way, and I believed that, and it made sense to me, and it felt better than shitty like anxieties and things like that. So that just keep that perspective.
Yeah, that happened to me with quitting smoking. Like speaking to your mystical experience, that was the thing. Like some voice was in my head, like if you can go 24 hours, you can go the rest of your life. Before like I left him, and like went home. And I was just like, okay, I guess that's it. It was like this weird calling. I was like, okay.
You quit smoking after a mushroom trip? Or
my intention, because I read these studies that he was talking and everything. So I was like, I've been trying to quit. I was smoking like 2 packs a day.
Oh, shit.
And I was like, let me see what I can do with this. I already take them. That was, 4 years ago?
And you haven't smoked in 4 years?
No.
That was in 2016.
That's awesome. Congrats.
2016, so 3.5, almost 4 years.
2 packs a day. That's like obviously horribly health wise, but then just like mentally, you're like driven and like you're prisoner to cigarettes.
It was so bad,
right?
and that calling came to me. I guess that could be in the range of a mystical experience because that was very weird. I left. I went home, fell asleep, woke up, no withdrawals, no cravings.
Yeah, we did a lot that day. I was out of control that day.
We did 7. We did 7 that day, maybe 5.
I'm surprised I didn't distract him out of quitting smoking.
So he almost did, but I didn't let you.
What changed though? Like you must have describe your thought process about cigarettes afterwards, because obviously you would have intense cravings and intense thoughts about why you need a cigarette.
My thought process towards cigarettes afterwards.
Yeah, like what kept you from smoking them? Right?
There was no cravings. There's
no
withdrawal
to it at all.
There's nothing. Yeah. Like the withdrawal is usually what pulls you back.
Right.
The cravings are usually what keeps you like in the state of like wanting a cigarette.
Even in
both of those were gone.
Social settings, you're drinking or other friends smoking.
I don't drink alcohol.
Okay.
It was just gone. Right. It was just like, imagine being like loving cheeseburgers and the next day it's just like it's just gone. Like it was the weirdest thing.
Huh.
And I just had to think about it. And it's funny that you say that because I was staring at a forest. Because I know you're saying you feel that mystical thing like doing hikes and stuff. And it's weird that you're saying that's the litmus test and everything. Like staring at the forest was part of it that helped activate and like it drew me in. Right. It was like I was being told something when I think about it. It was weird. Some kind of thing was happening because there was a big forest at this place. I'm just sitting there staring while all this stuff's going on. And slowly I started picking apart why I smoke and like what led to it. And I went back to like the first time I started smoking and how I felt. And I was just a kid. I was like 12 when I first started. And like it was this weird thing. And then all of a sudden something was telling me like, oh, you're a different person every 7 years. You completely change. Right. And you're already like 28.
So this is Mother Nature talking to you.
Yeah. Right, and it's like you're a completely different person and you're not that person anymore. You're not a kid anymore. You don't have those problems anymore. Like everything that you started for is gone.
And that was like, before the study came out on it. So
we
heard the study after. We're like, that makes sense.
Yeah. It was weird. Like there was some, but it was a lot of speculation. But now they're really starting to like be like, it helps people quit smoking. Before it was like, oh, maybe. But now it's like unarguable.
You just gave me an idea.
What's that?
Mushroom cigarettes.
Tobacco at the front, mushrooms at the end. Done.
Oh my god! Just smoke them. It's interesting too, because if you compare them, cigarettes are like the nastiest, shittiest man-made chemicals that we could possibly make, like carcinogenic, super addictive, and then mushrooms are like sort of nature's chemical. Like it is like you are sort of poisoning yourself, but it's like a natural like chemical. I mean, I guess you can't call it like, would nature call a mushroom a chemical? Like that's a man-made thing. So I don't know what it is.
100%.
It's interesting that one defeated the other.
So
like nature's chemicals defeated.
Oh yeah,
man's
nature
chemicals.
will always win if you let it. You know,
right?
Because
that's an interesting idea.
Right.
Yeah. Right.
Will it though, or will the cyborgs reign supreme?
With big cigars in their mouths.
Mushroom cigarettes?
What are you guys doing over there?
Right.
But
that'd be weird. What would happen if we get to the point, like, could you affect a robot, cyborg, AI being with mushrooms somehow? And like, that's how
it depends how much of them still has human. If they still have a serotonin uptake system in their brain, then they can still get affected.
Interesting.
But like, would they feel a body buzz? Not if it's all metallic. But if they still have their nervous system and their vagus nerve, they should be able to.
They put a bunch of like slime mold fungus in a maze that was set up to mimic the Tokyo subway system, which is like much more complex than the Toronto subway system.
Right.
and they put a nutrient at each of the stops, and then they just put the fungus mold in there, and it first like it explored like you know, like a hunter would on a new plane. It would like look around.
Just different.
So it did this like exploration move, and then it coalesced, and it basically made more efficient transport systems, like pathways, than the real actual subway system. Wow. So they say this is the scientists say, not me, not anyone, the scientists doing the study said that this is our first real, like, this is proof that we can communicate with mushrooms. Right. So our lack of understanding of mushrooms, or our lack of the ability to articulate what we learn from them, is more of it speaks to our inadequacy of to language, not and what we don't know. And what we could possibly learn. We just need to get back to our roots, right? Because we're all mushroom descendants. So I'm thinking, like, how could mushrooms like communicate with robots? Maybe they'll be able to like learn that language. more efficiently, and they'll pair up with mushrooms. There'll be robots and mushrooms versus humans.
Ooh, fuck.
Robots and mushrooms
we don't stand a
versus
chance.
humans? Why would they team up? They're on our side, no?
We don't stand a chance.
I don't know what the robots and the mushrooms are going to talk about.
I love you, mushrooms. I fucking love you. Why would you want to do this to me?
So yeah, that's basically a mystical experience. I think the mystical experience is, I guess it could be described as life-changing. Like if you want to make it simple.
Life-changing. That's an epiphany moment for sure.
Paul Stamets is a world's leading mycologist, and he has a really interesting story where he had a stutter until he was 19 years old. He couldn't get through his sentence, and he basically did 10, 12 grams of mushrooms almost by accident. He didn't know the dosage at the time.
Right.
In the podcast, he was speculating about 20.
Okay. Well, but I think there were
you had this guy on?
Wet mushrooms.
You had this guy on? No, you listened to his podcast?
He was on Joe Rogan's podcast.
Gotcha.
So yeah, just a bag he did. He didn't know how much was there. And so he ends up like climbing a tree, having this crazy trip, realizing that he's in a storm, which was like the way he describes it, like the storm coming in was like such a psychedelic experience.
Right.
So it comes in and he's like, "Oh man, Paul, you're on a tree, like this is dangerous. You're gonna die." And so he hugs onto the tree. He's like, "What's your problem? You read about like setting an intention. What is yours?" He's like, "Well, you got the stutter to deal with." So he's basically said like, "You will not stutter." Like he made a mantra, "You will not stutter. Stop stuttering now. Stop stuttering now." He repeats it thousands of times. And the next morning he went home, went out to like his town, saw like a girl that he liked. And she said like, "Paul, how are you?" And like normally he would look down, be too embarrassed. Wow.
Hey, buddy.
And he stopped stuttering. He said like, "I'm doing well. How are you?" And he never stuttered again until the day he met Bill Gates, he said. Or if like he gets very overwhelmed in a bar, he said, if he's like a little drunk, he's in a loud situation with lots of sensory stuff coming in, and someone says, "How do you grow mushrooms?" It's like filling a well with a teaspoon. Like where do you start? So he starts to stutter a little. But this guy like is a public speaker now and travels the world. And
he stuttered when he met Bill Gates because Bill Gates is a robot.
For sure.
That was it.
And the mushroom could feel it.
Yeah,
the mushroom was like
they could
this.
feel it. Yeah.
He's like, touch him, grab his hand.
I've heard them explained as like, I mean, I don't, you guys I'm sure know way more than me, but it's very popular and coming around, especially mental disorders, that it can be like for almost every mental disease across the board, like depression, different anxieties, personality disorders, OCD, all kinds of stuff like that. Mushrooms apparently clinically serve as like a reset, like a mental reset, where you can kind of like wipe the shitty operating system that you've fucking built about from your shitty childhood and then your shitty bad habits as a person thinking poorly as an adult. Like you just reset it.
My first 3 trips got rid of my depression.
Really?
And by the time I did it 3 times, I was 23, and I had been depressed from the time I was like 7 up until that time.
What was your like? How did your depression manifest? Like what kind of symptoms?
How did it manifest?
I was
really noticeably sad and just like didn't want to do anything. Didn't talk a lot in school.
No energy, no vibrancy.
I couldn't concentrate on anything in school. Couldn't do anything, and learning disabilities because they take you like into a room and they examine you and stuff. So I had a lot of learning disabilities and stuff. But it started because I got assaulted by this guy, physically, not like sexually or anything, even though they're both bad. But he was much older. I was like 8. He was like in his 40s or whatever. And then after that, my dad disappeared. And then after that, I had a big brother in the Big Brother program. And they never leave. He's like, "But I had to leave." So
say again.
They never leave, the Big Brothers.
Right.
They usually stay in the country. But mine had to leave.
Oh, wow. So you go to like the last thing for someone who doesn't have a male role model, and that fucking guy leaves too?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
That was like,
that's a bit of a run.
So then after that, it was like, all, right? Exactly, right? Then I turned to marijuana, and I was like self-medicating that way, and then mushrooms like Mushrooms are the things that made me think like, oh, maybe you could quit smoking weed, or maybe you don't have to smoke.
Right.
Like, it made my whole thought process just
There's a study that mushrooms could repair brain cells that are shriveled by depression.
Wow.
I can't. I'm allergic. I can't do it.
And
Bella.
And a lot of people turn to alcohol,
of course,
which is a fucking depressant. Like, why don't you just throw gas on a fire if
Right.
you're depressed? Like, it's the worst thing.
Exactly.
And they use it as like an escape or to numb out from their problems. When they, I guess mushrooms, you just face them head on, and then you're fucking smashed through them, and you're good to go.
It's like almost mushrooms brings them to you. The way I describe it is like it's like your brain's like a messy office, and mushrooms like gathers up all the files and puts them where they need to be, and then gives you like all
Take a look at them.
All the unfinished shit.
Read this and decide what you want to throw out and what you want to keep.
Exactly.
You want to deal with this, or do you want us to recycle it or burn it? What needs to happen?
Or I can just bring it to you next time. Like, you decide.
Oh, you want to ignore
be
this?
here.
It'll be here.
Yeah, exactly.
No, that's great. I'm a full-blown mushroom advocate.
I was surprised how much so. Because I remember you mentioned it when we did our first interview. You were I like them.
I haven't done them that much, but when I've always done them when I've had them around and available. Like that in London, those 4 or 5 times where it was like that was more like party shrooms with comedian buddies. The last 4 or 5 have been more like vision, a little bit party, but like mostly just like the way I've done mushrooms recently, more the way I would go on like a spiritual hike or like not a spiritual, more like a meditative hike kind of thing. Like, but both times are because of proximity. Like I knew someone who had the mushrooms, they were easily available, and I'm like,
got them.
I have another comedian buddy of mine, Monty Scott, who when we talked about mushrooms, he's like, bro, I'll do mushrooms anytime, any place, site, like on site, and to the point where now his nickname, anytime I introduce him, I introduce him usually as Monty Mushrooms on Skype, Monty Mushrooms on Site Scott. Yeah. I haven't called him out on it yet, so, but he's like, I'm like, really? Like, even if you had like, you have like a big show coming up, or you got like surgery scheduled, or he's like, bro, you got mushrooms? I'm in. Flat out, I'm in. He's like, I'm in.
Let's get him on the show. You want to take a break now?
It's never a bad thing.
Why?
Oh, Shane's probably coming in.
Hey. Yeah. Yeah.
I was actually going to ask you. No problem, Shane. I was actually going to ask you. A lot of people come to terms with like, hey man. A lot of people come to terms with like terminal stuff. Like, and I know you said your brother passed when we were in the last interview. Did that help you at all deal with that? Like, does that come up at all?
I don't
or
think,
were you already in a good place?
I don't think it really has come up. I probably haven't like fully dealt with any of that stuff. But I think where it did is just realizing that we are in a cycle of life, and that like a little bit of ego death allows you to face like physical death, I think, and realize that it's like, I'm only here for a short time. There's more than meets the eye to life and the cyclical nature of things. So in that way, I think a little bit, but not. It wasn't like I'm going to do mushrooms and I'm going to think about people, loved ones I've lost, kind of thing. But in a roundabout way, I think it helps you deal with some of that stuff because you never really had them in the first place. Like if you believe like we're all like some kind of weird sentient energy or energy that happens to be inside this meat suit that has senses somehow, like I don't know what we are after we're out of this, but it seems like we're just energy balls running around, and we think because we're in this and we have a perspective, we have a fake perspective, like, oh, I'm here and you're there, and you're there, but really we're just all the same energy, but we're in different meat suits, the same way as a mushroom is a different mushroom in the forest, but it's like connected through the forest floor.
Wow. Right. Wow. Look at this guy. He knows. Look at this guy. Are you on mushrooms right now?
I'm on a microdose, thanks to Mike. Yeah. But it's just the coffee, apparently, is all he said. Yeah. No, I like that stuff. I still like, I don't mind drinking and I can still party and boozing it up, but I do that recognizing that this is a shitty thing that I'm gonna not feel good about tomorrow. But in the moment, maybe it's fun and allows you to have some fun times with family and friends or whatever. If it's done like reasonably contained, like if you just drink, at the end of the night, bad shit's gonna happen. Where
actually, I want to ask you, and I'll let you jump in. I just want to know, has it enhanced anything that you do in your profession, like your acting, the comedy stuff, coming up with skits?
I think it's enhanced my entire life, because I think if you have that perspective about like what is real versus, or what is important versus not important, then you kind of walk around with more of a confidence that like what you're really doing or what we're meant to do, which is probably like enjoy yourself, make the world a better place, build things, create things, have fun, find moments of joy, and all the other shit's kind of bullshit. You know, like everything other than that. So creatively, I think, a lot of one of the best things about mushrooms to me is if you can write down your thoughts or record them or note it, I think the next day you have some great idea. I've had some really fun ideas and fun little sketches and fun little scenarios that just like act out of my mind, or like that I act out with people that I'm doing, where we just like go down this wormhole of hilarity. So,
really? Sort of connect dots that you wouldn't have otherwise connected.
Yeah, totally. That's a great way to explain it. Just like a weird like path of thinking. Same with weed a little bit. Not a little bit, 100% with weed. Yeah, definitely. Where you're tweaked just enough that you're kind of, your thoughts a little sideways compared to normal, or you're thinking a little outside the box.
Definitely.
Have you tried any other psychedelics other than mushrooms in your life?
No. I've done drug or like whatever you'd call substances, weed, alcohol, shrooms. I've done, I think, 3 key bumps of coke in my life, which
Classy.
I didn't like any of that. Coke is not for me. I don't think I need coke. I can generally turn on energy and talkativeness and confidence without having that kind of stuff.
Yeah, you're very
And
high
I can't
energy.
stand the like something in my nose and nasal thing was the fucking worst.
I always tell people, look at this nose. It's beautiful.
Right.
I'm not putting it in.
Right. The first time I ever did it was in university at a house party, and the only reason they were like cutting up small lines, and I was like, no, I don't want, that's not for me. Like, I don't, to each their own kind of thing. I know people have it in their life and manage it. It's just a party drug, and then other people, it fucking ruins their life. But for me, it was the moment. First it was a no, and then I legit had this thought process. I was like, no, because I know I don't want it to ruin my life. I don't want to OD on it. I don't want to, you never know what you're getting in it sometimes too. So that's an issue more so these days than back then. But I actually had the thought process of, I thought that first, like, no, you don't want to do this. It's bad for you. You derail your life. And then I was like, wait a second. Are you so much of a fucking pussy that if you like really, are you really gonna do a key bump right now, and that's gonna throw you down this like slippery slope and spiral where all of a sudden your life goes out of control? I'm like, fuck you.
Let's find out.
You can for sure do a bump, and that's all you do. It's like, it was a tiny key bump. It's like, do the fucking bump so you can check that box and move on and admit to yourself, like, the same thought process I've thought to myself, like, could I start smoking just to quit, just to prove to myself that I could start and quit smoking?
Don't do it.
How strong?
And I would never do that, because apparently, like, cigarettes are more addictive than anything else.
It's harder than heroin,
But that was the process when I first did a key bump.
Wow. The ego's a mysterious little guy. You see how the ego did? The ego's like, yo, what are you, a pussy?
Yeah, that's exactly what I thought. I was like, it was like, fuck you. Like, really? That's your fear? Your fear is you're going to do a little bit of coke and then your life is going to be ruined? Like, are you that much of a piece of shit that you're like, you have no control that you can do this and walk away?
It does make sense, but like,
it kind of made sense, but it was still it was a little risky.
And
I've done a little bit of E, couple bits of E here and there. One time in university, one time in Cuba on a beach, and it was amazing.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's incredible.
but nothing else, nothing harder. I wouldn't do coke now for the reason of like bad shit mainly, and that I hate it in my I don't like it. Yeah, period. I don't like the high. I don't need the high.
Way too much of a roll of the dice nowadays with the fentanyl that's around and stuff.
Really, weed and shrooms, but both of those in infinite amounts, as far as I'm concerned.
Infinite amounts.
Right. Nothing bad can come from either one of those when done properly in the right environment.
You got a question there?
I could.
You got a question? You got questions locked and loaded?
This guy likes to set them up. He's good at setting them up. He's like, you got a question, right?
Oh, here we go.
Yes, I have a question. Here comes the question.
There's a sketch pad.
Are you guys ready for the question?
There's a sketch pad. I thought I was going to be forced to sketch something earlier.
You could. Crazy day.
Yeah, so do you believe that psychedelic experiences will ever become like part of a modern medicine practice?
Yeah, I think
we'll get there.
I think it's probably on the tailing end. If it was like yoga, and then moving into more meditation now, and I think this psychedelics are probably the next step after meditation and yoga. I think it's kind of a natural progression. I think there's science that backs it. I think more of mainstream, like I'll use the term woke, but for lack of a better term, I think people are seeing that and connecting with this kind of stuff, like a purposeful like spirit quest or vision quest / legitimate treatment for like. I definitely don't believe that the pharmaceutical world is the way to deal with mental disease, because that's fucking everybody up and getting people addicted to shit with worse side effects than the original thing.
Yeah, why would we trust them with?
And or killing people. Like, I mean, sooner or later, a pharmaceutical company is just going to get a hold of mushrooms and they'll make their own version of it. But
like it's a problem for them.
It's a lesser evil, probably.
It solves the problem. They want to maintain problems.
That's true.
Typically,
that's true too. Yeah, I don't even know if they'd grab hold of it.
Right.
For that reason.
Yeah, maybe, right? Or they would just add shit that like solves the problem, but you're also addicted to it.
They're currently making the reefer madness version of magic mushrooms.
Really?
No,
like they're building a case.
That's what what they would do instead of embracing it.
100%.
Right.
No, they aren't actually doing that. I hope not.
There's no way. Like if you're someone who has whatever anxiety, I mean, I'm not saying get off all your medications. Obviously, you got to be very careful with that shit. And for some people, their pharmaceuticals is the perfect answer, and they figure out dosages and balance, and they're good to go. But if you're trying to figure all that shit out and you haven't tried mushrooms, I think you should definitely give that a shot after read the science on it and have a Sherpa to walk you through it. But I would say hands down to everybody.
That's how I feel too. Yeah. Like if you've tried so many things, it's like, why not try this?
And I'm in no way a physician. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not any of those things. So
I'm not any of those
things.
Don't
sue me because you watched a fucking podcast and heard a comedian go, you should for sure do mushrooms regardless of your mental issues.
None of us are experts.
Your Honor. Right. Lars Classington here.
Right.
That's great.
Judge, we hear that name, be like, out. Everybody out now.
Yeah, I wonder what a better way to do it would be. I like what you said about like put it in the control of corporations. Like once a year, like our employees are just doing this.
Mushroom Day. It's National Mushroom Day.
Mushroom training.
I know guys that are they invest in companies and people and stuff, and if they meet somebody and they like them, the last thing is they'll have them do mushrooms.
Well, that's what Google does,
really,
right? For their top execs,
because they want to actually like see where this person is at, or they want to know them.
Well, no, they want them to have that experience. They want them to see life from that perspective.
Then you know them,
right? True, right.
That too. Yeah,
that makes sense. Yeah, like we want to make sure you actually know. Like, yeah, that's kind of a Morpheus, red pill, blue pill.
Exactly.
That's what they do at Google. That's what the top execs.
Really?
They take them to Burning Man and they have them do a mushroom trip. Yeah.
You don't
but do they actually have them do a mushroom trip, or is it just like they have a free for all?
Hey, I'm
psychedelics?
not there. I don't know.
Yeah, I feel like they do everything.
I don't know.
Especially if you're a Google exec.
Right.
I don't know.
That's good. That actually makes me happy because I know that Google's probably leading edge of AI and cyborg technology, robot technology. So if they're mixing in some mushrooms, then maybe we do have a chance.
We do have a chance.
Oh
yeah, that's a good outlook. That's
Maybe they're just ahead of the game.
Or they're listening.
Shit.
They're listening right now to all of this. And Alexa's figuring out whether or not to kill us.
Every phone.
Fuck. Oh, they're here already.
They're hearing all this. We
Damn
love you,
it.
Google. Alexa, you're great.
When you
Doing mushrooms.
I think another interesting way to do it would just be sort of like a grassroots, family first. So you do them, you know it, you get certified, you take a test,
right?
You show your understanding,
right?
That your head's in a good place, and now you're allowed to guide people who are close to you. They have to meet certain criteria. Yeah, 3 friends every year.
You're describing a perfect mushroom psilocybin MLM business.
There you go. Now you're thinking grassroots.
Yeah. And then you just go talk to your 3 friends about how all the benefits of mushrooms and how well you're doing, and it's helped with your bank accounts and your residual income. And then they find 3 friends, and they find 3 friends, and we're all fucking rich, and we have no ego.
And we save the climate. Right. Mushrooms can save the climate.
That's the perfect answer. We need to incorporate this business. It's that or mushroom cigarettes, and I think this has legs.
This has legs. We could have mushroom cigarettes like in the MLM. It's one of the
that can be. If you're a smoker, then
need some
those are for
right?
you. Yeah, I mean, if you're already smoking, you might as well be smoking mushroom cigarettes.
That's so true.
That's pretty good.
That is going to be a thing soon. Somebody's going to have that, like a mushroom
already a thing.
Cigarette that's like sprinkled with like reishi and like stuff like that. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, like dipped in it or rolled in it or something.
Yeah. What is the? I think the whole world would be better for having mushrooms. As far as I'm concerned, there's not really a downside other than doing them in the wrong scenarios, and the only beef you can have after that is with your own brain, because you'd be like, I had a horrible experience. Well, because you have horrible things going on right here that need to be figured out.
Yeah, exactly. People are usually expecting like a rainbow and like unicorns to like pop out, but then your deepest, darkest stuff pops out. Yeah, it's hard. Yo, Mike, can I ask one of your questions?
Which one?
I saw it. Okay. I saw it in passing and I liked it.
Okay.
Can I say it?
Yeah.
Would you let your children do psychedelics?
Yes.
I
not
like
as
that
kids.
a lot.
Not as I don't know that I would do it as kids, only because I don't know if there's research behind that. If there was like research saying like drinking a little bit of mushroom tea on a holiday or something like that, or out when we're camping.
Yeah.
But a developing brain is a little more same with weed. It's like, is a kid crushing weed from age 12 till 20 good for his brain? Maybe not.
Wasn't good for mine.
But I would have no problem explaining to my children while they were children that I was an adult. Like, I wouldn't hide that fact from them. I would want to educate them, and I would certainly rather have them do mushrooms than other crazy party drugs like coke, or even E and MDMA is kind of fucking nasty. Like, can be shitty for your brain. Definitely. And bad one night experiences, but
I'd rather give my kid a microdose than a beer.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Almost, right?
Like, true.
Like, no, not almost, for real.
Yeah,
like,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it'd be interesting to see the studies come out on that one.
Yeah.
Well,
kudos to the doctors.
Guy? Yeah. And you should probably like European cultures who don't have as much problems with alcohol, because it's just like a family, like, because it's not such a forbidden fruit where like nobody can drink until you're this age and you have to drink in these places. It's like places where when you're like 15, you're like, here's a shot of whatever, like a shot of vodka, or
even when they're younger.
Yeah, when they're younger, because you're educating them and you're not making it seem like this crazy forbidden thing that only people when they're like being naughty get to do. Like, if you were to have it with kids, like, I don't know what age would be appropriate, but maybe 16, 18. Like, if you're having serious life conversations with somebody, maybe you can have a serious one while you're on mushrooms.
Yeah.
I don't know.
True.
Like, if you were a mushroom Sherpa already, like, I think you would be great with your kids having, like, assuming it was safe and legal and didn't show that it was negative things. Like,
if society was in a different place.
If it was the same effect of, like, if it's scientifically proven that a 15-year-old having shrooms is the same as an adult having shrooms, then I would say there's no reason not to.
Yeah, exactly.
100%.
As long as you're there
to have the talk,
them, to coach them through it.
Because there is a culture. They have the kids do it at about 6 years old.
Wow.
Yeah.
Cool.
It's like a whole ceremony.
I didn't know that.
And it's like a full-blown dose. You never heard that?
That's a place to go.
Oh, yeah. There's a whole thing. There's a whole thing on YouTube. You can see it. I think Vice even might have covered them.
Interesting.
A couple times. Yeah, it's a weird tribe where
is that?
You...
It's a tribe in British Columbia somewhere. Just a bunch of snowboarders.
It's a tribe. It's
Crawl
a
into the
tribe in
mountains
Kensington
outside Whistler.
Market.
Yeah, right?
They're called the sleeves. Everybody has tattoo sleeves.
Years from now, this is going to be used against me in a divorce court or something like this, or in a children's aid. Your Honor, Exhibit A, he clearly said he would allow his children to eat mushrooms. They are illegal. Case closed.
No, I said they could do them with my friend Mike.
Right.
The Sherpa.
The Sherpa.
Your Honor.
Right.
The Sherpa.
In our legal mushroom MLM corporation.
So we're here to enlighten, to educate, to maybe change some people's minds. What's a leading misconception, in your opinion, about psychedelics that might change somebody's mind?
Ooh.
I think the main thing would be fear of the bad trip for mushrooms, like fear of like, oh, I'm going to see goblins and ghosts and visuals and hallucinations. So I think it's mainly fear. But I would say in life, you need to get through your fears. And for most people, the way to get through them is to just face them head on and smash through them. And you realize that you didn't really have anything to be afraid of.
Right.
Yeah.
Or you did, but you had to deal with it. Like,
Exactly.
That's true, too.
You can run from it, or you can face it and deal with it.
And then you can grow.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. That's what you made me do with stand-up.
Yeah.
You gave me that pep talk to stand up to it. I did it.
Right.
It's crazy.
When I was on his podcast, he talked about wanting to, I always wanted to do stand-up. I'm like, what the fuck are you waiting for?
Yeah.
Go do stand-up.
Awesome. Then he told me about his brother, and then I was the same age, and I was like, I should.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Really?
I was
Wow.
the same age. And
I didn't know that. Yeah.
And I was like, Jesus. I'm like
33? You were 33 at the time?
I'm 33 now.
Right.
That's why I was going into it. I'm like, I'm right there.
Right.
And I'm like, I should be doing the things.
I had an older brother who passed away he had cancer, but it happened when he was 33, and he was in the prime of his life, like living his dream in New York City. He's a musician, and he was a producer, and he was an agent, and doing all this stuff. And then out of the blue, got hit with esophageal cancer, and less than a year later, he was dead.
Holy shit.
So
sorry to hear that.
Explain that story to him. It was brutal.
That's tough,
yeah. But that's always I think the reason that it's come up is I don't know that was necessary. It wasn't like the next day I was like, I need to go do showbiz stuff, but it was always in the back of my mind, like that he died middle of doing all the things that he would want to be doing, and he was killing it at all of them, but not like still on the rise and still on the up and up, like never really got a chance to achieve his full potential.
Right.
And so that's always remained with me since I've started to do this stuff. Like we don't know how long we're gonna be around. So
people put their hero dose mushroom trips as one of the top 5 most meaningful experiences in their life, and they put it up there with like the death of a loved one,
births.
So that's so going through that experience, you had a perspective shift that kind of gave you the kick in the ass to eventually start doing stuff. So that's kind of a similar.
My mother passed away only a year before that.
Wow.
Both from cancer.
Wow.
Yeah. It was crazy. So when it happened with my brother, it was like we were still my mom. And I have 2 brothers and my dad, so 4/5 of us were male, and we lost our mom, so now it's just the boys left. Yeah. And then it was like a year. My mom died in January 2002, and my brother died in December 2003. Wow. So we were just not even recovering. We were just all shell shocked from our mother's death. Yeah. And then all of a sudden this happened, but it was like kind of surreal. And then I remember thinking like, wow. You got one, you got mom. Obviously, this one he's gonna recover and he'll be fine. Right. And then it was like, what the fuck?
What are the chances? Yeah.
So I went from having like literally 40% of your family's gone within a year and a half. That was definitely a perspective shift. Yeah. But now I feel like after I was thinking about this because of mushrooms and because of dealing, like kind of once you've dealt with some death that way. I think now if someone close to me were to die, I feel pretty confident I wouldn't spiral into any depression. It takes some while, and you obviously grieve them and mourn them, but I have a pretty good grasp that this is like we're born to die, and we all die, and that's just how it is, and that can happen to any of us tomorrow. Like we don't have really any, I mean, we have a little bit of control as far as like habits and making good decisions, and
but
it's also random a little bit.
I was gonna say, it's still a roll of the dice kind of thing, you know? Yeah. Like you just never know. That's why when you told me that story, and then you mentioned like you're like this social media stuff, you're like, he'd be killing it on here, and it's like, fuck, like he was like so close to that.
Right. Yeah. He died in 2003, right, so it was like pre-YouTube and pre-Facebook, but up until that point, any like little gadget or any new technology, like internet was around then, but not social media. Yeah. And that was something where I was like, he would have fucking latched onto that like first, like he would be that I never had the opportunity to.
That story pushes me to like go after things and like little creative things and do it and like just get it done, because I'm like, fuck, man. Like my dad passed, and then like one of my best friends passed, like same, like within 4 months of each other. It was very, very crazy. But and then you told me that story, and I was like, fuck, man. Right. And like it happens to everybody. It happens a lot, like more than we care to think about. Right. So I was like, fuck, I really got to get on.
I met a guy, so I rent my car out on the app Turo, which is like Airbnb for your cars. So I occasionally, whenever I only have my car in the city for gigs out of town, and when I'm in the city, I never use it. So I started renting it out.
Wow.
Guy rented it out yesterday, and the reason that he was renting it out, he had to drive up to Bowmanville for his cousin's funeral, who was a tow truck driver. And on Friday, on the first snowfall on the side of the highway, he was pulled over dealing with someone who was in the ditch or whatever, and another car lost control and smoked him, and now he's dead.
Whoa. And you're in your car?
No, not in my car. So the guy who was renting my car was renting it because he had to go to the funeral.
Oh, okay.
Right, right. But the funeral that he was going to was his cousin, who was a tow truck driver, who 1 second was alive, doing the thing that he's probably done for the last 30 years of his life, and then the next second he was dead,
planning on going home,
super random thing. And it was funny because he said, the guy who was renting the car from me, I was like, he sort of told me that info on what he was doing, and I was like, whoa, fuck. And I, naturally being curious, kind of delved into it and asked him like what happened, and he was just like, yeah, that's life. And I was like, fuck. Is that like, it was life for that guy, but like that's like that, I mean, that is life, but like that's fucking shitty as well.
Yeah. My friend's sister just passed away. She just passed away. She's 28.
Right.
It was like 20. She was like a sister, but like, you just never know. Nobody's thinking.
No, in our heads, you're like, oh, everyone's gonna live till they're 85 years old. Yeah. Like, unless you've dealt with that earlier on, like if you deal with it earlier in your life, then you notice that that's like, nothing is permanent. No, nothing's like guaranteed.
Yeah.
You know.
So you got to do mushrooms while you can.
What are you waiting for?
I like the idea that we're all of human life is just incubating in an egg, and any experience that any individual has is just part of our shared experience.
Right. I buy that.
And that we're all just sort of incubating into becoming a greater being.
Right.
Eventually, once we've had enough experiences.
Right.
That's something that's interesting.
You know,
almost like death is a graduation, where like now you're on a higher plane. Like you figured, like, I don't know, to that guy, he unlocked something and it was like, okay, you don't need to be here anymore.
Not even like you die and then you just restart the next experience.
Right.
And you just do that again, and then that ends, and we're all just one consciousness.
Right.
Just sort of dying and getting reborn in different times, bodies, and then eventually becoming this next level being that can create a universe of our own.
Right.
This is the thing, the egg, right?
Yeah. That makes total sense to me, and I think a lot of people have the experience. To me, the thing that is proof of that is if you look at a zoomed out picture of the Earth from space, and then you realize all of everyone is in this one ecosystem, in this one thing.
Yep.
Plants, animals, us.
Everything.
It's like, how can you argue that we're not all connected, that we are all one, when you can like zoom out and look, like we are all on this one controlled
we're all right here.
system. Every once in a while, one of us breaks out and goes to the moon or Mars or whatever, but like we're all in this equal ecosystem. Plants and animals, really. Like I think
And
we experience it different, and we have skills that most animals don't. But who knows? Maybe we just don't. Maybe they got shit. Like I saw a picture of an octopus. I saw a video of an octopus the other day, and it was changing colors because it was dreaming.
Yeah, I saw that.
You see that?
Did you see how the dolphins like to get recreationally high? They find a puffer fish and they squeeze it. It releases toxins. They get high just like we do from weed, and then they pass it to the left.
Yeah.
And
So
I wonder if you can give them mushrooms.
I'm
sure
you could. Yeah, why not? Wow. Well, the mycelium from the mushrooms actually grows in the ocean, so there's mushrooms everywhere.
I actually knew a dolphin that did mushrooms to quit smoking.
That's you.
Yeah.
Oh, all right, let's call it there.
The
Let's end it.
the dolphin was smoking 2 packs a day, and I'm like, hey man, you should
For more on the dolphin that quit smoking, you can access our premium content.
Right. We have
Can you
video.
imagine? It's just me in a dolphin suit. I'm like, hey guys, what's going on? They're like, this is bullshit. Thought these guys are serious. Man, it's a weird thing to think about, all that stuff, all that death stuff. But I like it, and I've been able to think about it more easily now after doing mushrooms so much.
Right, because
before I think about
really
death,
negative.
and I go like this, and I be like, no, can't think about it at all.
Yeah,
it's not really a negative thing. It's just what kind of is. And then if you do think, like you were saying, as far as us being all like these being light beams or energy that just is manifests in different areas of the world or of the galaxy or the universe, then it's not a bad thing.
No, not at all.
It's bad because you miss them and you like to hang out with them and do all that shit. But
find stuff out.
The only thing that makes you think it's bad is your ego.
Right.
Your ego and the fact that you haven't you haven't gone through it.
Yeah, because you're like, oh, I don't get to be around them anymore.
Yeah, right.
But Alan Watts always says that thing. It's like, think about like where you were before you were born. And then like he's like starts talking about that. He's like, and it could be the same kind of thing.
Right. Do you know?
When you
Can
die?
you remember where you were before you were born?
Man, I don't remember at all. But my dad
like
passed
Mike
away.
Knows. He's like, there was this one time I did mushrooms and saw the whole thing.
I
was
no
in Cleveland, actually, before I was born.
You know what? You know what I was talking about on one podcast, the Phil podcast? What if like good deeds are the currency in the afterlife? You don't go back. There's an afterlife, and the currency was good deeds.
I mean, that's kind of
what
a lot of organized religion is built upon, isn't it? Like heaven and hell kind of thing.
But these are like those are like controlled. Like it's almost like
that's like
all
to
your
get
deeds,
in. You mean
your deeds are going to like the churches and stuff.
I'd be rich as fuck.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. What if you went there and you're like, you only have $10? You're gonna be a good
movie. That'd be a good movie concept.
Right?
Just a society that like we work on good deeds,
Yeah.
and it's just all like.
And if you don't have enough to survive, they're like, this is like it's like $1,000 a month to live in heaven. You got to go back.
You got to go back.
You got to go back.
No,
they're like,
someone would
and they
rebel.
put you in like
someone would rebel and be like, fuck this system. It's like these people fucking forcing us to do nice things.
They put
fuck
you in
them.
a body in
And they'd be
China
like-
in a
and
field.
they become like the evildoers.
Yeah, they'd be like Lucifer.
Start a whole start a whole society on like, you can do whatever the fuck you want. You don't like that guy? Punch him in the fucking face. Come with me.
Satan,
You know?
Satanist.
Right.
That's like their deal. That's what
Right.
you do. It's not necessarily a bad thing.
Yeah.
You guys do mushrooms, right? You guys are open to Satanism, no?
I don't know. That's too far. Yeah, you crossed the line.
Well, you got to do a hero dose first.
Right.
You got to do a hero dose, then you'll get it.
Right.
Who knows, man? Hey,
I mean, the devil is in you, and God
Me?
is in you. I think, like that's my. I don't really ascribe to any, like, oh, there's God, like there's a man in the sky or a woman in the sky or some like thing outside us. My sort of closest thing that makes any sense is we're all, like I said, we're all kind of energy connected, and if there's a God-like thing, it's really in all of us, and we choose like any given moment. I can have a loving conversation with you, or I could fucking try to kill you right now, or you could try to kill me. Like we're equally good and equally bad at any given moment based on how we feel and what we want to do and stupid choices that we may or may not make.
Yeah, we've all done like weird stuff, and we've all done bad stuff, and we're also capable of doing incredibly good things.
Some people have amazing lives, and then right at the end of their lives, they like rape and kill a bunch of people. Or people do the opposite. Earlier in their life, they rape and kill a bunch of people, and then they live amazing lives like saints for the rest of it and do all these good things.
Malcolm X, man. He was beating women. He was a drug dealer.
What's the net result of your like entire existence, as far as like if you stacked up all the shitty things you did and all the good things, hopefully you did more good things.
True.
I bet you Epstein's just off being a good guy right now.
Right? He's on an island with Tupac and Biggie and Elvis and all those guys.
And he's like, you guys want any kids? And they're like, no, man, you can't do that here.
All right.
That's fucked. We can't go down that wormhole.
That's a crazy.
It's a whole other
wormhole.
podcast.
That's a wrap.
Yeah.
Wrap it up properly.
This is Talkin Mush, episode 3.
Wrap it with the last question.
What's the last question?
What did you ask Dino the last time?
When are you coming back?
No.
After what?
I'll come back whenever you. Literally, I'll come back
next
week.
After yes, that's it.
That's the question. When are you coming back? Like, and more importantly, when are you doing more mushrooms? Because we want to invite you back from.
So the person that I messaged before coming here,
Yeah.
I wasn't able to connect with her, but she's around later tonight or tomorrow, and I'll probably go grab some of those mushroom chocolates from her.
Episode 4.
Later tonight or tomorrow, I will personally be locked and loaded. Now, I didn't have a plan of a hero dose there.
Yeah, I was gonna. Yeah, are you ever gonna do that?
I mean, I feel like now I have to. Part of the you've reeled me in just with the word hero, because in my head recently I wanted to do like action hero type movies and get into that kind of shit. So I'm like, well, fuck, if I'm going to be an action hero in a movie, I got to do a hero dose of mushrooms. It only makes sense. Or maybe that should be that my hero movie should be about a guy who does a hero dose of mushrooms.
And that would be
Mushroom Man.
And then saves our forest.
Mushroom Man.
Yeah.
He just showed Mushroom Man shows up and it's like, what's the problem here, guys? Here's some mushrooms. Here's some mushrooms. And then he just moves along like every bad scenario. Here, drink this tea. Here, drink this tea. Thank you, Mushroom Man. No problem. Like, that's
You're
pretty
tired.
good.
You're tired. Drink some reishi.
Shroom Man. Mushroom.
But he doesn't fly.
Man.
He has
Mushroom
to travel through the ground.
Like
mycelium.
Yeah.
He doesn't fly.
Ooh.
He just goes anywhere in the earth.
He travels through Elon Musk's
Hyperloop.
Right. Yeah, those tubes.
No, the boring holes.
Oh,
Right.
yes.
The boring.
Yeah. What do they call those? Hyperloops, or I don't know what they are.
Yeah. It's called the Hyperloop, but it's done by the Boring Company, I
Right.
believe.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh yeah. So sorry, you're getting off track there. But yeah, do you actually plan on doing a hero dose at all in the future?
What's a hero
with a proper
dose?
Sherpa,
Like
of course.
4 or 5 grams.
6.
5 plus
Man.
is the answer.
5+.
6.
You generally want to go to the plus if you want a better chance.
I'm a big guy.
You don't want a
Yeah.
dud. You don't want a dud, right?
And you're a big guy.
Right.
Yeah. 7. You're
Yeah, and then you go through all that nightmare.
We don't condone
work
doing mushrooms
to not.
at all.
Look in the camera and say it, so they can
Yeah.
see the lie in your eyes. No, I'm kidding.
I want to. I want to. I know I need to, but I.
Like, has that ever been in your mind at all, or you like just been thinking?
I've thought about it, but I'm also very happy. Like I feel like I already know. Like I feel like I know what that will be like at an intellectual level already. So part of me is like, do I even need to do that myself? It's like,
It's the type of thing you do at the
like
right time, the right place. You
Right.
know when you need to. It's
Right.
not something you want to just do because.
Yeah, that's why I was
Right.
asking if it was. Ever
So
in
it's
your
not
mind.
It's not like something you'd want to rush into necessarily.
plan it.
just because of us. But
honestly, I would be way more likely to do it. With you if you've done it that many times, but also with like cameras and microphones and shit like that. if there was a way to document it as well, then
Yes, there is a way to document.
then I'd be game.
Yeah.
we could talk about that.
Yeah,
Bro.
we'll eat 6 mushrooms a half an hour before the podcast on an empty stomach. And that's,
And what do you be a podcast? We can make like a
Yeah, we won't need half an hour then if you eat it on an empty stomach.
right.
It'll kick in.
Instant.
15
Your
minutes.
stomach's
so my
your
answer's
stomach's
yes.
looking for something to.
My answer is yes. I aspire to be a hero, so I will.
Awesome. We look forward to
do a hero
hearing
dose.
about you being a hero.
Amazing, man. We're at a minute or an hour and 53 minutes.
Nice.
I'm glad we did.
Yeah.
I knew
thank
that
you.
was going to happen with you.
Yeah.
Smarter than you
That
look.
would run long.
Yeah.
Nice.
Thank you. You got good conversation.
Thank you.
You do good convo.
Episode 3. Talkin Mush.
With Lars Classington. Yo,
I hope you learned
actually,
something.
You know Stop.
Hit me up at Lars Classington on Instagram.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
Facebook.
You have a weekly show Mondays? Are you still doing that?
No, we're not doing that anymore. Oddly enough, because the venue put in indoor trees, so the showroom now doesn't have sight lines.
Oh Jesus!
You'd have to like look through a forest indoors, which sounds really cool, but it's actually not the best for a show where you're supposed to be able to see the person on stage.
No, not at all.
It's like a rainforest cafe.
Yeah, exactly. It was a venue at 1830. Shout out to 1830. Go there. It was probably a beautiful place to be on mushrooms. If you're gonna go to a place, you've been there. It's kind of funky.
I've been there. Met the owner.
Very very cool interior design. But no more Monday Fun Days. But you hit me up at Lars Classington. I do lots of shows around town.
Yeah.
Or at Laughing Vikings is my production company and studio.
Yes.
So you can follow along. And
where is that located?
That's Queen and Broadview, 696. Queen Street East.
Queen Street East.
Studio, we do a lot of self-tapes there, actor self-tapes. So if you're an actor and you need help with an audition, we've got professional actors who are readers and help you shoot and edit your self-tape to submit it.
I was actually supposed to come there to see if I could shoot my podcast there.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
We do a little bit of podcasting, but podcasting takes so much time.
It would. That's the thing. I would have to pay for like 2 hours every time, at least.
Yeah. You got a great setup here. What do you need? You don't need anything else.
Well, yeah, now I'm here with him. Colin's process, though, like I'm trying to like bring it closer to where all the musicians and stuff are, you know.
Right. It is a good area for that.
And they're usually like transport, like, you know, transit, I mean. You know, they're on bus and stuff, so it's hard. But we'll see. But is there anywhere else that you're doing like a weekly show or anything like that?
Not a weekly right now. Well, actually, we are recording a podcast at the studio still. 39 Drunken Disorderlies.
Oh, yeah.
Is a podcast about the crazy stories of a 6'11" giant that we happen to be friends with called Giant Bob, Big Bob, who's a punk rocker, bouncer, and in his life from age 18 to 27 had 39 drunken disorderly citations. So,
wow.
Like you guys talk about mushrooms being one of the better substances, we talk about alcohol being one of the crazier / poorer substances and all the crazy things.
I've watched a couple episodes. It's actually really good. He has some fucked up stories.
Crazy fight stories.
He's like, he's just huge. Yeah. Like he walks into the room and all of a sudden he looks like you.
I'm a baby next to him.
I
stand. I'll give him a hug, and my head is resting comfortably in his bosom, right here. Yeah. He's giant. He literally how we met him is I was in a live theater version of Princess Bride, and he was playing Fezzik, Andre the Giant's character, to a T. Like doesn't even. You're like, am I just watching the movie on stage right now? And we met him, and after shows and rehearsals, we'd be smoking a joint and having a beer with him, and he started telling us these crazy stories. And at one point he said, I've had 39 drunken disorderlies, and it like a little like light bulb went off. We're like, that sounds like the name of a movie or show or something.
Yeah.
So we want to eventually make it into sort of a dark comedy, action comedy, reenactment type docudrama.
It's like 100 Ways to Die.
Right. Yeah, a little bit.
Wow. 100 Ways to be drunk.
And so like to give you an example, like he's a bouncer, so he's been in crazy fight scenarios. He's a punk rocker. One of the terms he used the other day was spaghetti arms, and spaghetti arms is when he's broken a guy's arm to the point where it's just like flop, like there's not really any semblance of structure or bones, that it's just like
that's just when my arm gets numb in the morning.
Fuck,
right.
That's horrible.
Spaghetti arms.
Jesus. So. And where can people find that podcast?
It's everywhere you listen to podcasts. 39 Drunk and Disorderlies. Perfect. Or the Instagram is at 39DD Show.
I'm gonna have to listen to that.
Yeah, it's great.
We don't have a ton of content on the Instagram site yet, but we'll be slicing up. We have like 25 episodes that we've done, and I think there's 21 online.
Great.
And just a lot of crazy stories, but we don't glorify booze because I think the net result of booze is probably negative on most people's lives and families. But he has some crazy fucking stories, and all of us have great stories that where booze were involved. Some of the craziest, most fun things you've ever done with your buddies.
Of course.
And then a lot of people have some of the worst nights of their lives and terrible things that have happened as a result of booze. So we kind of face both of those head on and don't really glorify it. We talk about the crazy shit and the reality of it being a very addictive and destructive substance for a lot of people. So,
you know what? Do you have anything left to say?
No, I don't.
Okay, so
we said goodbye like 10 minutes ago.
We're
still here.
But
this
you know
is like
what?
bonus footage.
Yeah.
Don't worry. It's only been 5 minutes.
Yeah, we can go longer.
Yeah.
But I just would like if you could say your thoughts on psilocybin, and if anybody hasn't done it, like what you think, like if they should do it, shouldn't do it.
Yeah, I think have I not iterated that? I think people should.
No, but we have to have it like right at the end. Like I
think you should 100% try it in a safe, like do some research on it, look at some of the scientific journal like from a trusted source. I know it's hard with fake news and all this shit, and someone who you know and trust who's tried them and do it, and start out in the right scenario with people you know around situations that are comfortable, and do like a gram of it, like eat a chocolate or do one, see how you feel, go in nature. You want to try more and do what's comfortable. But I don't think you'll ever have a bad trip if your head's okay going into it. And you're in those good situations. And like we said before, even if you have a bad trip, that might have been something like you'd be better off for, because you had to deal with some shit in your head.
Perfect.
Go mushrooms.
Awesome.
I'm fully on team mushrooms is what you're asking.
Sick.
Team booze, I'm like I can deal without that. I could never have it again, but I still do drink. But team mushroom, 100%.
Sick.
Awesome.
All right.
Episode 3. Talkin Mush.
Lars Classington.
I hope you learned something.
Michael Johnson.
Colin Cummings.
All right, we're out.
Cheers. Lars Classington.